Langford Manor had always cast a long shadow over Somerset. Set at the crest of the hillside, surrounded by ancient oaks and shrouded in mist half the year, it was more than a home. It was a symbol. For over 2 centuries, the Langfords had ruled their corner of England with grace, wealth, and a carefully cultivated silence. Behind their stone walls, reputations were protected at any cost, and appearances mattered more than truth. But all of that was shattered the morning Edward Langford vanished. Edward was 19, soft-spoken and thoughtful, the only child of William Langford, who had died in a car crash with his wife when Edward was just 9. Since then, Lady Beatrice Langford had raised the boy within the marble halls of Langford Manor, overseeing his studies, his etiquette, and every detail of his life with unrelenting precision. He was the heir to everything: the estate, the fortune, the legacy. And now he was gone. Beatrice had risen early that October morning, as she always did, to walk the eastern corridor and check on Edward before breakfast. But when she opened the door to his room, an unfamiliar chill rushed over her. His bed hadn't been slept in. His phone lay untouched on the nightstand, still plugged into its charger. His sketchbooks sat neatly on the desk. His coat hung on the hook. Only the window was open, wide, its white curtains fluttering in the breeze, a cold drizzle soaking into the rug beneath it. There was no note, no signs of struggle, no broken glass, just an eerie, unsettling absence. Edward had disappeared, as if the night itself had swallowed him whole. The search began immediately. The staff were questioned. The grounds were scoured. Police brought in dogs and drones. Nothing. No leads. No clues. No activity on his bank card. Not even a cell signal. By noon, Charles Langford arrived. Beatrice's only surviving son, Charles had long expected to be the future of the Langford name. But after Winston Langford's sudden death 5 years prior, the will named Edward's sole heir. It had never sat well with Charles. "He's run off," Charles declared, arms crossed before the fireplace, a tumbler of scotch already in hand. Probably got it in his head to run to Paris, or start painting in some attic in Rome. He never wanted the responsibility. This place always weighed on him. But Beatrice didn't believe it. Edward had always been quiet, yes, but never cowardly. He would not have left her. Not without saying goodbye. By the second day, when the police were getting ready to call it a voluntary disappearance, Beatrice made a call of her own, to Detective Elise Howard. Elise had once worked with MI5, but left to become an independent investigator. She was smart, measured, and had a reputation for uncovering the kinds of truths that wealthy families often preferred buried. She had met Edward once, briefly, at a Langford charity gala. He'd seemed out of place, more interested in the architecture of the ballroom than the guests in it. She arrived late in the afternoon, wearing a rain-slicked trench coat and a hard, searching look in her eyes. "I'll need full access," she told Beatrice. "No restrictions." "You'll have it," Beatrice replied. Elise began with Edward's room. Nothing had been tampered with. There were no signs of anyone entering through the window. The ground beneath was undisturbed. But something felt staged. Too perfect. She flipped through Edward's sketchbooks, detailed pencil drawings of trees, the stables, portraits of staff, and then, tucked inside the final pages, she found something odd. It was a drawing of the Langford stables, boarded up and abandoned since Lord Winston's death. Beneath it, in Edward's delicate handwriting, "The truth lives where the past was buried." Elise followed the lead. That night, with only a flashlight and her instincts, she crept into the stables. Dust coated everything. The air was thick with the scent of mold and rotted hay. She searched for hours, tapping on beams, listening for hollow sounds. At last, behind a wall in the old tack room, she found it, a tin box sealed with wax and wrapped in oilcloth. Inside were 3 items. First, a partially burned document, a copy of Lord Winston Langford's revised will. It named Edward as the sole beneficiary, with instructions to donate more than half the family's wealth to local charities, fund arts programs, and create a scholarship for underprivileged youth. Second, a photograph of Charles Langford entering Winston's private wing at midnight the night he died, 5 years earlier. Third, a handwritten letter, addressed to Elise. If you're reading this, it means I've disappeared. Not by choice. Grandfather didn't die in his sleep. He was silenced. He changed the will. Charles found out. I found the vial. I know the truth. But no one will believe me, except maybe you. If I vanish, find the truth. Expose it. Please. Elisa's blood chilled. This was not a missing person case. This was a buried murder, and the heir had uncovered it. She returned to the manor, questioned the staff again. Most were tight-lipped. One housemaid crossed herself and whispered, "Talk to Mrs. Ainsley." Mrs. Ainsley had been Edward's nanny for 10 years, nearly a second mother. She now lived in a modest cottage on the outskirts of the village. Elise found her there, sitting in the parlor with a worn teacup shaking in her hand. "You know where he is, don't you?" Elise asked softly. Tears welled in the woman's eyes. "I had to keep him safe," she whispered. "He came to me, terrified. He said Charles had threatened him. I couldn't lose him like we lost his parents. So I hid him." "Where?" Mrs. Ainsley handed her a small brass key. "The gardener's lodge. It hasn't been used in years." Elise returned that night. The lodge sat on the edge of the estate, forgotten behind overgrown hedges. Inside, beneath a loose floorboard, was a trapdoor. And beneath it, Edward. Pale, thin, eyes sunken from sleeplessness. But alive. "You found me," he said, voice cracking. "I never stopped looking," Elise replied. "But now you have to finish what you started." What followed was the trial of the decade. Charles Langford was arrested and charged with conspiracy, forgery, and suspected involvement in the death of his own father. Edward, the boy everyone believed too soft, took the stand with clarity and conviction. The revised will was authenticated. Staff testified about Charles's outbursts. His financial motive was undeniable. He was found guilty on all counts. Langford Manor, for the first time in a century, breathed freely. Edward didn't return to the life they'd planned for him. He refused the business. He tore down the walls that had kept the public out for centuries. He turned the West Wing into an art center, the stables into a school. He planted orchards and opened the gardens. He gave the people of Somerset back what had once been hoarded by privilege. Years later, Elise returned. She found Edward by the lake, sketching, as he always had, with the manor standing quietly behind him. "I thought legacy was something you wore like a crown," he said. "Turns out it's something you build with truth." Then, like and subscribe to this channel for more.